Hello, and welcome to the Pragmatic Live podcast series, where we tackle the biggest challenges facing today's product management, product marketing, and other market and data-driven professionals with some of the best minds in the industry. I am Rebecca Kalogeris, Vice President of Marketing and Product Strategy at Pragmatic Institute, and your host for this episode. And today I'm extraordinarily excited because not only do we have one of the best minds in the industry, we have one of the best minds at Pragmatic. Hi, Rich.
Hello, Rebecca, and nothing like setting that bar low. Thank you.
All right. So those who don't know, we have with us Rich Nutinsky, who is a longtime Pragmatic instructor, product management guru, leader, experienced executive, and who just celebrated 15 years with us as an instructor.
Yes, I did. And it just seems like yesterday. Yes, I did.
So, I think one of the fun things for us to explore today, Rich, is, in your career, both before you joined Pragmatic and also all of the time that you spend, all the different companies you see, all the different technologies you learn about, all of the different people you teach, sort of the evolution of the profession that you've seen, and what's changed and what's not changed. And I think if we can just dive right in there, that'd be great. But first, just for those who haven't had the pleasure of having you in front of the classroom, maybe just give everybody a little bit of the Rich story and background.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So I stumbled my way into technology a long time ago. We've already established the fact that I've been around a while, and I worked in mainly software, enterprise software. I worked for some really large software entities. I started my career in what at the time was the largest application software company in the world, no longer in business. And I worked for large companies and small companies, and eventually was the founder of a startup, my own company. And I pretty much did everything you could do in the software world. Some of my experience was also in service-based technology companies, and even some B2C. And I made my way around the company. I did implementation consulting and helped clients implement technology. I did pre-sales support, kind of, product demo, Dolly, helping salespeople and customers find that right fit. And then I made the fateful decision of diving into the world of product. And I often joke that I got tired of complaining about the product, so I decided to do something about it and jumped into product management. And as I started my career in the world of product management and product marketing, at one point I realized that the one thing, I became the leader of some product teams, and I realized the one thing that my team was missing, as talented as they were, was that we had no training. Everybody was just kind of thrown into the deep end of the pool, and we were struggling to figure out how to get things done. So I stumbled onto a little company named Pragmatic, and I decided maybe that was something I needed my team to learn. But before I was willing to send a team, I thought I should go find out what they were all about. So I signed up for a course. And I know that there isn't a lot of credibility here because I've been an employee for a long time. But I have to tell you, it was a seminal moment in my career. It changed everything for me. The things I learned from Pragmatic, the model I learned, the approach I learned, were just completely revolutionary at the time and changed everything. So I sent my whole team to Pragmatic and I implemented it. And I found when I went to my next company, I implemented it again. And when I was the founder of my own company, I used the model again. And the reason I kept using it is it just worked. When I got to a point where I was sold my company and I didn't really know what I wanted to do next, through a whole series of accidents, I ended up in a discussion with the founder of Pragmatic, who said to me, "Why don't you teach other people this? You've got the experience. You're enthusiastic about what we teach. How'd you like to teach it?" And who knew that I would find the thing that I really have loved the best, and that is meeting thousands. I think the number 5 years ago that you guys told me was that I had taught personally somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000 students around the world. And so add another 5 years to that. It is one of the most rewarding things you ever could do. But I think the thing that makes it equally rewarding is you believe in what you're doing. I really believe that when I teach people the things that we teach, I'm giving them really valuable information. It's going to help them. It's going to help them. It's going to help their companies. It's the way you should do this. And it leads to success. So I've been doing it ever since, and it's the best thing I ever did. And that's pretty much my story.
Oh,
Um,
I love your story, Rich. And I think what you bring to your story is what you bring when you teach, right? It's both the experience of having done it yourself and just a true belief that if we follow these processes, we get better outcomes, we get better products, we have better companies, and we have more success. And it rings so true because it is so true, and it is so true for you.
Rebecca, one of the big things, you say to me, what's changed? What have you seen from an evolution? And the first thing I wanted to say, just on this point, I mentioned that when I first learned this, it was really different. It was really different than anything I had heard, any approach I had seen. Companies were pretty much steeped in their own product, wrapped around their own value propositions. We kind of consumed our own messages, and it was a matter of going out there and getting other people to see things our way. And when I learned what Pragmatic was teaching about being market driven, about putting your customers at the center, that the answer to your questions is in the marketplace, that you don't have to sit in a room by yourself and have inspiration strike you, an inspiration of and some wild idea to be successful. That what you have to do is hard work of finding real market problems and solving those problems better, cheaper, faster than other people do it. And when that became a part of the way I thought, when it became ingrained in me, it was difficult in many instances to get people to think that way. They hadn't thought that way. One of the biggest changes I found, I feel so validated when I look around, and I try to stay up to date. I read voraciously. I think there are tons of really smart people out there writing really great books and promoting really read. And as I learn about some of the more current approaches and methodologies and concepts that people are embracing, I can't help but see in virtually every one of them the essence of what Pragmatic was teaching over 25 years ago. I mean, we predated the Agile Manifesto. And yet this notion of iterating, of doing less more, of doing the right things, of keeping people focused on outcomes. The notion of we were promoting essentially what were user stories before there was anything called user stories. We had a different name for it, but fundamentally it was the same stuff. So whether I'm looking at safe frameworks, or whether I'm looking at jobs to be done, or whether I'm looking at the discussion of OKRs, when I look at all of these things, I kind of smile, and I have to say I'm proud, because it seems to me at the essence of most of our modern thinking are the same concepts that our company was such a pioneer in driving forward and continue to develop. So I really feel validated about that, and it's something. It just makes me so happy to know. I mean, I always felt we were the right way, but sometimes you felt like you were swimming upstream. I don't feel that way at all. I find it's so easy to bridge all of this thinking with what the fundamental essence of what we've always taught. So I really feel validated about that.
And I think that's such a great point. I mean, the number of guests I've had on my podcast talking about pieces and the concepts that they bring and the concepts that we teach, there's such parallels there, whether or not they're familiar with our teaching. And I agree with you. It's really neat to see. And the appreciation and understanding of that approach is significantly better understood. It is more widespread. That doesn't always necessarily mean that we are better at doing it, or that we're consistently following the discipline, right? We know it's like a good diet and exercise program. You know exactly what you should do, but it doesn't mean we're doing it consistently.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's a good point.
But that's why there's, same thing with personal trainers and good instructors and good coaches. There are tools, there are techniques that can take it from now the concept to now you can apply it, and now there is some implementation help. There are partners along the way. There's a community around you to help you actually bring these concepts and love to life.
And dare I say, make them pragmatic.
Yes, absolutely.
in the true sense of the word.
Yes. So what else have you seen? What else, when you look out at the landscape, really pops
Well, I'll
to
tell you
you?
what, I have been more excited about what's going on in the world of product in the last 5 years or so. I believe we are in an inflection point. If I look back over my long career, I mean, not to overemphasize my how long I've been around, but when I started in technology, we were talking about mainframe computers and air-conditioned glass enclosed rooms where you didn't talk to developers, coders. It was this mysterious thing. And I have lived through the revolutions of getting out of that mainframe environment, through the client server wars, through the network wars, to the cloud, to the web, to the apps, to what a journey it has been. And I am so excited because I believe we are entering the age of products. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I believe the technology is starting to settle down. I think the debate about technology, after decades of wrestling with it, it's pretty much settled. We found a convergence of devices between business and personal. There was a time when products were about, how do I take a spreadsheet that was useful in business and make it helpful for me to do my home budgeting or create a shopping list or make my Christmas cards. It was, how do I take essentially business applications and apply them to the rest of the world? Well, that's gone. It's gone. The proliferation of products, the millions of apps, the offerings, the services, settled. I mean, it's just I'm amazed. People don't realize, we take it for granted today. I could give you 2 sterling examples. I have a relative who, while a student, recognized a market problem, thought that had a way of doing it, was able as a young person, as a teenager, to garner the resources to create some apps, had a distribution model available to billions of people through platforms like Amazon, was able to talk to people and gather information through social platforms, was able to crowdsource for funding rather than the VC dance, and built a company that today, 15 years later, is a very successful commercial software company with multiple products, and he's the CEO, became a career. Similarly, I just was engaged with a young woman, an interesting story, and one I actually want to talk to you about offline. She approached, I belong to a number of groups on some social platforms, and in this group on a specific topic, she put a post out that said, listen, I've got an idea. Here's my background. She actually had been working in the food industry. She was someone that did research and development and on food products for large food processing companies. And she saw a need for a specific niche line of food. In her case, particularly, kind of more contemporary, kosher food based on kind of Jewish cuisine that brought people back to their childhood and memories, and kind of ethnic line of products, comfort kind of foods, but kosher and available, distributed digitally, and through websites. And she was exploring the idea of doing that. And so she put a post out that said, listen, I'm looking for anybody interested, talk to me about your memories about growing up and what are your food memories and your family. And so I responded to her that, I'd be happy to talk to her. And also, I had some background in developing products and businesses. And we got in touch. We did an interview. We did a video call, and we spent about an hour on the phone. She had some questions for me, and she told me that the response to her request for people willing to talk just overwhelmed her. She was inundated with people who were willing to give her some time. And she did a whole series of interviews to try to sound out her idea. She asked a lot of great questions. We then kind of got off the topic of what she was researching and got into starting a business and building a product line. And we kind of stayed in touch. And she's moved forward. She's reached out to me when she was doing some things about branding and naming the company. But she again expressed this notion of crowdsourcing. She's doing market interviews via social media because she has these audiences available that are subject specific. These groups where the topic is everybody's got a common need, common interest, and she tapped into them. And she was able to do interviews. She was then able to put out questions on the social platforms to validate things she was hearing from interviews. And she was doing surveys. And she's moving right along with the business. And she's learned some things she didn't expect. And she's confirmed some things she did believe. And she's just going to move forward. And this kind of model, I've been calling it the democratization of products. This notion that the proliferation of what we can offer to the market, the platforms available to us, the technologies are available and secondary. So now what skills do you need? Well, obviously you need to have an idea. You need to have a passion and an interest. But I'm going to argue the skill that's really going to be necessary is you're going to have to know something about products, about how to get them built, about how to market them, about how to design them, about how to take them to market, about how do you move to the second product and the third product. So I'm so excited because I believe now the need for what we teach, the need for the processes and the model that we've invoked is now it's pervasive. And we've moved away. I'm still somewhat mystified when I participate in a lot of groups that are product management, product team oriented, again, on social media. I'm astounded by how many people in that world are still stuck in the world of talking about the tools they use. Talk to me about how you live in a Jira world. Talk to me about how you use this tool. Does anybody have a great tool to do this? And I often make a comment in these groups that say, this is like talking to a group of carpenters and they spend 3 hours talking about their favorite hammer. We shouldn't be talking about the hammer. We should be talking about carpentry. We should be talking about the things that we're going to use these tools to do, what they enable us to do, and what the steps are. And I'm just so excited because I'm seeing this revolution in the world of products. And I think we're entering the age of products. I think we're there. They're coming, they're going. Which ones are successful? What makes an app stick? How do you come up with the second one and the third one? How do you differentiate? I mean, competitive intelligence. Let's just talk about competitive landscape. Really fascinating. I have seen, and it took me a little while to catch on here, I have seen people in social media threads throw a question out like, can anybody recommend a local service provider that does this? A plumber, a restaurant, a pizza shop. Here's what I'm looking for. Who would you recommend? And people come back with a list of people, names of businesses, and then the thread starts. People say, oh, they're good, they're bad. Oh, this is bad because of this. These guys are great because of that. And I'm sitting there watching this repeat itself. And all of a sudden, I stumbled on the fact, and I contacted someone that said, why did you ask that question? Were you actually looking for a pizza shop? And the answer was, no, we're thinking about opening a pizza shop. I wanted to know who else was there. I wanted to know who people liked. I wanted to know what they didn't like. And they were actually assessing competitive landscape and preferences of the market using the social media platform and asking a question. I thought it was fascinating, just fascinating about what we can do today. We have availability to audiences like we never had before, directly. We have availability to a distribution model with billions. You don't need distribution partners. You go on Amazon, you put it on a platform, you put it on other e-commerce sites, boom, fulfillment, done. You have access to funding and crowdsourcing and other methods. It's just remarkable where we are. And I think it's a revolutionary time in the world of products.
Rich, one of the things you started off by saying was that, it's not about the technology anymore. And I think it's spot on. And as I listen to you, it's not about the technology, it's about the user and the market. And I think not only our access to our users in our market is super different, but their participation and their desire to participate in that product cycle is super different. We've been really fortunate because we teach product managers and product marketers, right? So they're among the most willing people to participate in Nahido calls and research, because I think they're like looking for the good karma for it to come back to them when they're doing their own. But I see that happen now, right? You're talking about people wanting to share their food memories and people providing responses to those kind of threads. I think people not only want to, but they're starting to really expect to be part of that product discovery and development and feedback cycle in a way that makes it so much more powerful than it had been in the past.
The thing I'm noticing, I don't know if you are, Rebecca, I'm interested in hearing your comments, but where we used to simply post things, I am finding, at least in what I'm experiencing, that the posts are now turning into thread discussions, right? These threads are developing. I'm in some groups where there are people in that group, I feel like I know them. They live halfway around the world, but yet we always respond to each other's comments and our likes and our shares and nice job. And I'm a foodie, and I'm in some groups where we share some of the things we cook and some of the observations about cooking. And there's a guy out in Western Canada who I've become friends with. I wouldn't know if I hit him with a car. But we have this relationship we've developed on these platforms. And I think the other thing that's a big opportunity for everyone is some of the other things we've learned in modern times. So, the technology is one thing. The fact we all carry around a device where we expect to be able to do virtually anything in our mobile devices, and that the devices and the technology are kind of interchangeable and ubiquitous. The other thing is how much we've learned about people. I read an interesting book recently. Because of the advent of technologies like CAT scans and MRIs and other imaging, people are doing research on the brain. We have learned more about how the human brain works in the last 20 years than we did in all of recorded time before the last 20 years.
Wow.
Right? We've learned about how the brain works and how people learn and how people hear and what impacts them and different levels of the brain and where information is stored and how it's recalled. And it's a very interesting topic from a physiological standpoint. But the interpretation of what we learned is there's now scientific data, for instance, that says if you really want to influence people, you need to understand how the brain works. You need to understand how the brain calls back memories. When people resist ideas, you need to understand where that resistance is coming from and what spurs it. When people are open to change, you need to understand how that happens. And one of the really interesting things the research shows is that the conveyance of ideas through the story, telling stories, is probably the most effective way for people to get something. To learn to listen to people and hear what their story is, learn what a lot of scientists are calling their life story, and then being able to dovetail your ideas and thoughts and messages so that it can impact their individual specific life story. so that they can internalize it and impact them and affect their beliefs, their behaviors, and all the things that marketers we try to do, their perceptions. It's amazing what we know today and the ability to do that. It's not just pot luck. So as we start to integrate some of these ideas, I think we really are moving to a world where one-to-one marketing
Mm.
um, is really an understanding of individuals. And I'm sure we'll classify them into groups, but that with an understanding of how to do that, the ability to get noticed, the ability to have impact, the ability to persuade, to stand out in the crowd because you understand how people listen and think. It's going to be a remarkable revolution. I don't know, I'll be around to see it all, but I see it coming. I see it coming for sure.
And I think the ability to do that kind of micro segmentation and communication in a way that feels authentic is the places that are really going to separate themselves, where it feels like you understand me and my life story and you're supporting it. And it doesn't feel like you're, tugging on my shirt sleeve saying, Rebecca, Rebecca, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like where,
yeah,
that
yeah.
nuance, that flip is going to be so different.
Really different. Really different. It's an exciting time. I wish I was 30 years younger.
Yeah.
No,
But
actually, I don't. I'm lying. I really don't. I don't want to. No, I'm not 30 more years. No, no, no.
All right. Well, you know what, Rich, we talked about a lot of stuff. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that, maybe some takeaways, some things, knowing what you know now, knowing what you've seen, knowing how the world is today? Are there a couple of things, a couple of pieces of advice that you would give our listeners that they can do something with tomorrow?
I don't know that my message has changed much throughout my career,
Hmm.
but I've always told people who I've tried to mentor and pass on something I think was valuable. The one ingredient, look, everybody understands that it's good to have knowledge. Everybody understands it's good to be smart. Everybody understands it's good to work hard. I think the one ingredient that's mandatory and you have to have passion. You have to have passion. If you don't have the passion, find something you have the passion for and then go for it. Believe in yourself. Look, you're never going to hit 100%. Nobody hits 100%. And we all know that it's trite to say this. You learn more from failures than you do from successes. Sometimes you have successes, you don't know what made it successful. Part luck, part skill, part knowledge, got it. Failures you can dissect. Be retrospective, be self-critical, challenge. You could certainly attest to this, Rebecca. Some people over the years find me to sometimes be difficult because I'm obstinate and somewhat opinionated. I'm pretty vocal. But I was doing office hours a couple of weeks ago for us, our Friday afternoon Ask Me Anything. And one of the students, one of the participants in the conference call said, I love when Rich does this. And, I'm like, wow, great, I'll take compliments. And Eddie, our moderator, she said, I want to tell you why I love when Rich does this. Rich is a disruptor. He makes you think. He challenges you to think. He doesn't accept what you say at face value. He asks you, have you thought that through? And he disrupts your way of thinking. He makes you say, wait a minute. And I would urge everybody, challenge yourself, disrupt yourself, ask questions, explore things you have a passion for and stick with it. And success is right there. It's right around the corner. And that's what I would offer to people.
That's just great advice, right? Find something you're passionate about and then just keep pursuing it and poking at it and questioning it and being just when you're passionate, I think it's easy to be curious about it, right? When you're a foodie like us, you taste something like, oh, I wonder what ingredient that is. I wonder how they, find the passion and keep at it. And I think it's true, right? And don't settle
Yeah.
because when we passions aren't built on settling.
And welcome to the age of products. That's where
Absolutely.
we are. Yeah,
What a wonderful time to be in product management and product marketing.
you betcha.
All right, Rich, it was a genuine pleasure, as always, to have you on today. Thank you so much for the time.
Rebecca, anytime at all. I love talking with you.
All right, that does it for today's episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And don't forget to join us next week when we tackle another great topic designed to help you elevate your product, your company, and your career.